Novocherkassk, a southern Russian town, the jail. Death row. A man is awaiting a date with his executioner. Like anyone sentenced to death, he's nervous. Any knock at the door could be the last. His name, Andrei Chikatilo. I'm nothing but an actor who's performed a role to earn an Oscar and to get into the Guinness Book of Records, that's all. Let the person who's written the scenario for all this explain it to the people. I'm asked, describe how it all happened. But what can I explain when they didn't show me the case file? They hid it. They're hiding it all. They've put great things in there, painting me as a beast, that's all. And now people look at me. They must put up with me here. The city of Rostov-on-Don. Here, on April the 14th, 1992, began one of the most dramatic trials in Russian legal history. Sadist, accursed killer, the voices in the court are crying. Son of a bitch, scum. What have you done? Killer, vile creature. Hand him over to us, we'll make a court fit for him. Chikatilo, a former schoolteacher and devout communist, was accused of killing and mutilating 53 women and children over a period of 12 years. Leonid Akubjanov, the local judge who presided, had the task of analyzing each of the murders. For 6 long months, Chikatilo described in detail how he picked up his victims at railway stations, bus stops, and on street corners, and lured them to their death in the woods. The case against him took prosecutors more than a year to build up. It filled more than 200 volumes. The evidence was often too much to bear for those who had lost their loved ones. Sometimes even his guards couldn't stand it. Chikatilo's trail of death began here in Shakhty. In 1978, aged 42, he began teaching at a technical school. He was married with 2 children and lived in a hostel attached to the school. To the people of this small mining town, north of Rostov, he was an upstanding member of society, one of the small elite who belonged to the Communist Party. Unknown to his wife, he bought himself a rundown shack in a little lane on the outskirts of town. Межевой Lane, number 26. Here, on October the 22nd, 1978, Chikatilo carried out his first murder. 9-year-old Lena Zakotnova. Chikatilo had met the girl at a nearby tram stop and persuaded her to come back with him to his house. After she walked through the front door, he turned off the light, forced her to the ground, and strangled her. After killing the girl in the house and mutilating her body, he brought her here. He threw her body, together with her bag and clothing, into the rushes. 2 days later, the body of Lena Zakotnova was found 150 meters from here, in that direction, near the bridge. Not far from here lived Kravchenko. He was subsequently arrested in connection with the murder, and he was sentenced to death. Alexander Kravchenko, then aged 25, was an obvious choice for police. He'd already been convicted of one murder, but narrowly escaped execution. He spent 6 years in jail instead. This time around, he was not so fortunate. The fact that he lived just a few doors away was an unhappy coincidence. He was made to confess to the killing. Leonid Akubjanov, the judge who convicted Chikatilo, calls it a tragedy. The police and the prosecutors had good reason to suspect Chikatilo. That's the most terrible thing. Chikatilo was seen with a girl. They made an identikit picture which looked like him. If Kravchenko, who was shot, had not been convicted, then they might have convicted Chikatilo instead. And there wouldn't have been all those terrible murders which followed, those 52 murders. Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo was born on October 16, 1936, into a family of peasants in the village of Yabloknoye in the Ukraine, in the midst of the worst famine the country had ever known. Millions of peasants died as the Soviet dictator Stalin forced them out of their family landholdings and into collective farms. There was worse to come. In 1941, Hitler launched his blitzkrieg against the Soviet Union. Ukraine was one of the first areas to be occupied by the invaders. Chikatilo's father was sent to war and was soon taken prisoner. Conditions on the home front were appalling, leaving an indelible mark on those who lived through them. We were sitting in the cellar and our hut was on fire. There were dead and wounded people, and they were loading the dismembered bodies in front of me, all those limbs. Then there was the famine. And the whole time my mother used to say to me, "Don't go anywhere outside the courtyard. They ate your brother Stepan, and they will eat you." They took him and ate him there. After his arrest in 1990, Chikatilo spent 2 months undergoing tests at Moscow's Serbsky Psychiatric Institute. The senior psychiatrist who examined him was Andrei Kachenko. Of course, with Chikatilo, we have a case of abnormal development from childhood. His mother brought him up on her own, and material conditions were bad. Besides that, there were those experiences directly linked to the occupation, the war, and so on. For example, one of his most vivid memories was of the bombing raids and the destruction they caused. The bodies being carried on wagons. Then came the post-war years, the years of famine, about which so much has been written recently, where there really were registered cases of cannibalism. After finishing his military service, Chikatilo crossed east from Ukraine to Russia and settled in the little town of Rodionovo-Nevskytayskaya, 30 kilometers north of Rostov, where he found work as a telephone engineer. Although tall and fairly good-looking, he was shy with girls and convinced that he was sexually impotent. His family despaired that he would ever find a wife. Then, in 1963, aged 27, he met and married Fayina, a miner's daughter. Despite his sexual problems, he fathered 2 children.